Hey,
Hey, hey, good day, good day. Hello, East Coast. How are you today?
I'm amazing. How are you, West Coast?
You know what's hilarious? How many times has this happened? So, East Coast, West Coast. Look at you wearing today, all in black. I haven't worn this shirt in gosh knows how long. I'm like, I'm gonna wear a white shirt today. Caroline's been wearing white lately. That'll be awesome.
I like to
This
play
is
with your mind.
I know. But this is a perfect lead in because we have Dennis with us today who's going to tell us some pretty cool stories and about his business. And you know what? I can pretty well say we've never had anyone on the show that does what this guy does. And so I'm excited to have him on because he's not, he hasn't written a book on personal development and he hasn't, even though he's full of personal development and, he doesn't have a podcast where he talks to people about their life, even though he's had the most expansive life. But the one thing that I love, because, Caroline, I mean, people do talk about how we banter a little bit. And, you know, I think more times than not, I lose that banter. So I get to ask you today, because I was thinking about the show, and of course, Dennis is going to tell us what he does. And I was thinking, oh man, the best name for this show would be something like True Grit. So Dennis, knowing him a little bit and loving his story, there's a story about his mom telling him that he couldn't do something, which really spurred him on to doing something. I don't know. I'm just going to take a guess that someone once in your life was brave enough to like tell you you couldn't do something and you proved them wrong. Is there any stories that you can tell? Like just one?
Oh goodness. Yes. I was turning 18 and I wanted to work in a bar and I was not 18 yet. And someone told me you can never be a bartender if you don't have any experience. I'm like, yes, you can. I'm like, yes. And I had a friend, he's like, hey, we're looking for someone for tomorrow night. You want to come and meet my boss? And he's like, yeah. I said, yes. And I've always had the mentality without knowing it. Now I know what it's called. But since I'm little, I say yes to things and I don't know how I'm going to make it, but I figure it out. So I went to meet the boss and he's like, are you good to, mend the bar and Baba? I'm like, of course. The only thing I knew was beer or shots of tequila, basically. And so I'm like, of course. And I get there the night of, little did I know it was an open bar. Oh my gosh. And then, someone came and ordered a drink and I can't remember what it was. And I'm like, are you sure you don't want a shot of tequila instead? And he was just like, yeah. And basically, I'm in the bar the whole night without making a drink. The owner came at the end of the night and he's like, we've never passed that many bottles of tequila in one night. And I'm like, well, you know, was amazing. He's like, fine. So tomorrow, can you come as a waitress for the floor? I'm like, no problem. Never held how do you call
A
it?
tray?
A tray.
A
And
tray.
so I was taking the tray and walking like this, and so another waitress saw me and she's like, you have no clue how to hold your tray. And I'm like, no. My whole night. And that's how I started working in bars. So yes, a lot of people told me I can't do stuff. And I was always the girl to be dared because people knew like if you dare Carolyn, she's gonna do it. So I'm not gonna go through everything that I did because some are not proper.
Thank you. Yeah.
But
We,
let me ask you the same question, Deb, because
oh.
you a little bit, and I know how to push your buttons as well. And ways is to tell you that you can't.
Well, here's an interesting thing. So first of all, you know what? When you talk, I absolutely love it. I can hear Richard Branson, I mean, isn't he famous for just say yes and figuring it out afterwards? I'm not sure if that's why. I mean, knowing you the way I know you, you probably thought you had experience to be a bartender because you had been such a user of the product. It's like I can sell, skincare really well because I'm a user of the product and we just assume that we know how it's made and how to sell it because, we use it so much. But I'll remember one of the first businesses that I ever started. And, most of my businesses started in my head, and I don't know, I just had this gumption. But there was a really successful woman. So it was actually in direct sales, the same same industry we're in. And I'll remember it like I remember it. When those things stick in your head because you can see the room. I'm standing in my living room. Chloe is about 4 or 5 years old. I'm looking out, that's how much, I can see outside the window. And this woman who was really successful, and she was successful in a jewelry company, and the kind of jewelry that wasn't necessarily my style, but we were totally good friends. And I looked at her and I said, I'm going to start an aromatherapy home party company. Because, I was into aromatherapy. So, and she looked at me, and she was very successful, top 10 in Canada. She looked at me and she goes, nobody's going to be interested in an aromatherapy home party company. Like, nobody. Like, that's not going to work. And the feeling through my body would have killed any venom of a snake. It was like, if there was poison in my body, it would instantly have been annihilated. And I looked at her and smiled, and in my head, and I thought, watch. And so, I proceeded to have a company for 17 years, formulated 350 products, and da. So out of sheer shock and prove you wrong, hey, I had a company for 20 years, so I guess I should probably take her out and have a glass of wine. I don't even think she knows that story. But yes, I do think there is something that triggers off a reaction that you can run with. And I've heard people say that, very well-versed people in business. They're like, sometimes it's an idea that keeps you going. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes you're out to prove yourself. And it's really interesting because you're actually proving it to yourself. So Dennis, I know I want to bring you into the conversation here because you're just sitting there looking pretty. And we want to bring you in the conversation.
I want to add one thing before, because
sorry?
I want to add one thing before, because I think.
Okay, then I'll let you introduce Dennis. Yeah.
The way we're talking about it right now is as if there's someone and they will do it. And we are exceptions, because a lot of people, when they're there or told they can't do it, they will actually embrace that feeling that is not theirs. They will embrace that fear that is not theirs, and they will stop themselves. So I want to give credit to you who started a company. It was not just like me going in a bar, and I really want to underline how strong Dennis was, because he will tell us his story. But I mean, if I was in his shoes, I'm not sure if I would have given in into borrowing the feeling and borrowing the statement. And this guy did not do that. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Dennis. I'm not sure.
I guess we have to say that, right? Good morning / afternoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks, Carolyn. I mean, a lot of my beginning was just like you. I mean, just say yes to it and go for it. And basically, whatever you can do as a service or do for people that you can make some money from, that's what I would, throw my over the fence for and just go figure it out.
Well, tell us the story, Dennis. I mean, I love that. And Caroline, thank you so much, because I think we really need to always be careful. It's like, I don't know, my mother used to say, watch your P's and Q's, meaning watch what you say, watch what you do, right? But we don't realize how much influence we have just as a person, just as a friend. Myself, it seems like bizarre to talk about it, but me and my daughter, when we went shopping, we finally agreed not to tell each other what we thought about the outfit that the other person, because if she didn't like it, I didn't buy it, period. Right? I mean, the chick's 16 years old and I'm going shopping. She's like, I don't think so. And I would put it back on the rack, and I loved it. So we never know the impact. So always, if you don't squander someone's dreams, just put your hand in front of your face. But Dennis, tell us about how your mom told you couldn't make, your story about how you had to pay for that Harley. And
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I was very lucky when I was growing up. I was going to school, and my dad got me a job on the waterfront. He was a longshoreman, and I went and worked with him for a while going to school. And he actually signed up a co-signed for a loan for me to buy a brand new Harley. So I was 17 years old and fortunate enough to go into the Harley dealer in Bellingham and pick out a brand new bike. And the lady next door, our neighbor, was the bank manager, and my dad co-signed. My mom had no knowledge of it and the worst thing that he could do in her eyes. And I'm sure they had lots of words, not in front of me about that. But remember, to this day, my payment was $104 a month. And back then it was, like a chunk of money, and I was working, so it was great. And then the work died down, and I'm sitting there at the table going, well, geez, I got to do something. What can I do? I have to make this payment. So I came up with this idea. If I go to the hardware store and I buy some lumber and some screws and nails, I can make picnic tables. So I'm sitting there drawing it out and figuring out the costs and what to make. And my mom come up and says, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I told her, I'm figuring out, if I buy this lumber, etc., I can make picnic tables and sell them at the flea market and make my bike payment. And then she just kind of laughed and said, "Well, nobody's going to buy anything from you, so don't waste your time." And I was just like, I'm just kind of like, whatever, like lots of other words more colorful than I had. but I got on to like, okay, I'm really going to make a picnic table now. So I went out and I built a picnic table. I made it really nice and like round, and the curved benches that go around it. And I got up early at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was at the flea market in Cloverdale, and I sat there all day with my table for sale, and nobody bought it. It was finally like 4 o'clock, just about time to wrap up. And this lady came along, and she's walking around it and looking. And finally she says, "Well, if I bought it, can you deliver it?" And I said, "Sure, I can deliver it. I got my truck outside. I can deliver it right after we're done here." So she said, "Okay, good, I'll take it." So she took it, she bought it. And then before we wrapped up, this other lady came by and said, "Oh, I like that table. How much is it?" And I told her, and she says, "Okay, I want to buy it." And I had to say, "Well, it's sold, but I'll make you another one. I can take like an order." I didn't even know what I was really doing, taking an order. But that's really the
The benefits of going through a McDonald's drive-through at some point. I can take your order.
Yeah. Well, we can start a waiting list. Problem, right? So that's what I did. And I made a table for her, and then just kind of went from there. And I got from there into doing other things.
That's incredible. I mean, tenacity. I can hear Caroline Jones. When I hear tenacity, I'm laughing because, we can all be there. If you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, or you're someone who's had an idea and you're down to your last dollar, you know what I mean? It's like you sat there all day. You can just, it's like this little, and if you hang in there long enough, right?
Yeah. Well, when we were growing up, like we didn't have much money, my dad, he would actually bring like a jerry can of gas home every, few days for me to ride my bike. So
Yeah.
as long as I came up with the payment, I was good, right?
Yeah.
But
Caroline, I can see you.
My rebel mind here is the question that I feel like asking is, did you end up building your mom a picnic table? Like,
no, that's a very good question, and I did not. But I did actually build my brother and his family a picnic table, and my dad helped me, and we snuck over in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve, and we put it up on their deck, and they woke up to the brand new picnic table on their deck. So that was one thing that came out of it. That was, man, like 30 years ago, and they used it for many, many years. My brother passed away. And then my sister-in-law gave me the table back. So I still have that table all these years later.
that's
Wow. So if you wake up on Christmas morning and there's a picnic table on your deck, it's the picnic table angel.
But you know what? Yeah, wait for the picnic table angel.
Picnic table angel.
let's bring where we really want to bring you and talk about the for me, what fascinates me, because right now you are a very successful entrepreneur that doesn't worry anymore about how you will pay your bills or if you will put food on your table and etc. But you got there like that. It was a long winding road to get there. So can you tell us now, what are you doing? Because it's a very unique industry, to say the least.
Sure. So right now what we do is we do blasting and rock splitting, and we get involved in a lot of environmental jobs that are sensitive, like blasting rock in rivers that are like raging water, fast rivers, where the fish can't spawn up because of the blockage. We blast that. We do rock breaking inside of buildings. We do work inside of high rises, things like that that are very difficult. And it's still the same. It's still kind of the same core feel of you just kind of, you do what you do, but you also are open and receptive to what people want, you know?
So what
So
I,
when I,
it's like,
oh, sorry, when I think of rock blasting, so when I first met you, I was like, when you're like, oh, I'm in demolition, I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, I've seen TV, I've seen demolition before, right? And I just didn't realize that was when you started talking about, oh, we've got this different grout and we've got this and it does it this way. And, you know, I've been able to work with the Army and it really kind of opened up my head. I mean, to go from picnic tables to, you've got a little journey in there too, if you want to touch on what
Sure.
that was like for you a little bit. How did you get there? I mean, how does one get to, I want to blow stuff up? I mean, that's like every boy's dream, right? And girls. Okay,
Yeah.
there's some women. So like, there's people like you can get paid for blowing stuff up, and it just seems for a lot of people, like they it's just not something that they ever bring into their world. Like, tell us a little bit about it. What drives
Sure.
you? What kind of stuff can you do with it? Like, why would I call you? And what's the company name, by the way?
Apex.
All right. I see that
Apex
cool
rock
circle in the back there.
Yeah. So basically the story is like, I didn't really set out a path to get to where I am today. The path just kind of wiggled and moved and changed with the common thread. But a lot of it still goes back to this just kind of doing what you want and being committed to an outcome. So I started off doing excavating after I finished building the picnic tables. I got into building fences and then excavating, doing landscaping in yards. Then after that, I kind of specialized more into demolition. Then I got into more concrete breaking and that kind of industrial side. Then I had a car accident and then I kind of couldn't work for a couple of years, had a head injury from that. And I wanted to start off with something simpler with not as many employees and stuff and as much headache. So I got into this and it's kind of taken my background of demolition, of breaking things and learning how concrete comes apart to rock. So I took the demolition experience and brought it into rock, to splitting rock and blasting and the expanding grout. We sold and used it ourselves for our demolition business. One of the jobs was we had a job for Vancouver General Hospital where they had us take out a big concrete pedestal that was on the second floor right above the operating room, and they didn't want to shut the operating room down. So we drilled this quietly and poured the grout in, and overnight it expanded and broke the pedestal up. And in the morning we came in and just shoveled up the concrete, and they were amazed. It just kept operations going as normal. Didn't even know we were up there actually.
wow.
So it kind of from that to like, okay, well, I got that now, I'm doing that. And what else can I add to it? You know, what do people want? What can I sell? What can I charge? What can I do as a service? What can I expand on? And it just kind of kept growing. And it just kind of goes from saying yes, but also having a curiosity about what else is out there and learning about it, you know? So then I had the grout going, and then I had the thought of let's try out these deflagrating cartridges, which are like an explosive, but it's like a low explosive, works on a different principle. It's a lot safer and more environmentally friendly than high explosives. So I got into that. And then all of a sudden, one day I got a call from the US Army, you know, saying that, hey, they were trying to deepen harbors in Florida and other areas in the States, but they had 7 harbors in Florida, Jacksonville, Miami, et cetera. And they saw, you know, online our product and us and wondered if this product would work for what they want to do. And I said, yeah, I think it would. So we had a talk. They hired us to go down, they hired me to go down and train some of their blasters in the Army. And that in itself was very intimidating. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to Mississippi to train the Army's top blasters who've blasted tens of thousands of shots, and I've blasted maybe a few hundred shots. And what am I going to teach them, you know? But, you know, off you go, and you build relationships, you just show them what you got, and, you know, nervous or not, you just do it. And at the end of the training, they said, you know, hey, we learned something from that. That's great. So we kept on doing trials and tested it in underground settings. We tested it underwater. The results came back really well. So the difference between our product and high explosives is it doesn't kill the fish. And down in Florida, you have dolphins and manatees and stuff, which they're not allowed to blast. So if they can do this, use this product, it would actually open up a lot of this kind of work, because the ports want to bring in bigger ships all the time. And now we're looking at a job for the Navy that's deepening a port or a berth so they can park a submarine. So it just kind of, you put yourself out there, you get inquiries and calls, and you just keep kind of exploring and going.
I want to say though, it's like you're saying all of this so simply, and then U.S. Army called me, and now we're gonna do something for the Navy. You're saying it so casually, but I know as an entrepreneur how nerve-wracking it is to make decisions, and especially when you do something that you haven't done before and you say yes, because
Yeah.
that too, like you just say yes and you go and you figure it out. I commend you for that, because I know that, and again, you passed over your car accidents like, oh yeah, I had a car accident and couldn't do much for 2 years, but I know how basically you lost everything and you had to pick yourself back up. So to
Yeah.
pick yourself back up, start something new, and then just keep on going. And I don't want to say without fear, because I am absolutely convinced there was a lot of fear within you,
Oh, for sure.
but you went through it and look at where you are now. But maybe can you tell people a bit of, how did you go past the fears and going to next steps of like saying, okay, I haven't done that yet. I haven't blown the ocean yet. Let's go do it.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a great question. For me, a lot of it is not being afraid to fail. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, because they go, well, that's scary or sketchy, or I don't think I could do that. What if I fail? I'm going to look bad. I'm going to, people are going to talk about me, whatever they have as dialogue in their head. But honestly, Carolyn, most of the stuff I've learned is from failing. It's like, if you fail at something, you go, okay, that didn't work. What went wrong? What can I fix? And how can we try it again? And it's just not being afraid of that.
it's detaching yourself emotionally from failures, because
No, not at all. It's not yourself. It's just taking it on and allowing yourself to fail, but not letting it take you out. It's just like if it or succeeds, it is one of those two things. It's not you personally. It's just what happens, right?
I loved how you said one of the things when you're answering Caroline about what it was, and it was about curiosity, right? And someone who's heard you talk before, one of the things that picks up on my ears is that I hear you say, so I thought, well, we could see. Well, why don't we try this? And you have this kind of, well, what was the worst that could happen? Well, that was kind of tough. And there's this kind of elevated kind of, people would call it inspiring, but it really is about curiosity. And I think that not only are you in an exploratory industry, right, where it's like, wow, what can this do? What can this growth do? I mean, we were talking in the summertime and you're like, oh man, it's like, I can barely stay on top of my business. And I'm like, what are you doing? Because look, I'm in business. I always want to know when people are being successful. And you're like, who would have known that one of the side things that would come to me is that as we're blowing this stuff up, that these rocks are absolutely fantastic for landscaping. And so, and now I've got a product that I can take to market, and and all of a sudden you're like, people are ordering it. Now I'm getting trucks, they're ordering half tons and tons because people want this for their yard. And so then what happens with me when I'm like, oh, that's what he's talking about. Like when we were in West Vancouver, and I'm like, well, that's what you're talking. You're like, yeah, we did that place and we did that place. And I'm like, so it's interesting when you get to see an end result. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. We bleeped for a minute. But when you see the end result of who knew that was coming down the pipeline. So when I think about you and how you continue to have this success show up, I really think it's your mind that's very exploratory and it's very curious. I think that's an incredible element of entrepreneurship that people don't talk about a lot. because they'll say, oh, you have good ideas or you're super brave. But there's many different things that entrepreneurs can do at any given time. It's knowing what to say yes to, and sometimes what to say no to, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes what to say no to, and not that you're limiting yourself, but you're defining yourself.
Right. One of the things that we had last winter was, in the wintertime, our business slows down. It's kind of cyclical that way. So we had a blasting job in West Vancouver that we were bidding on. And it's again, nerve wracking because you don't know what other contractors are bidding. So you're trying to pick the right number without going too low so that you're not going to make any money. So we bid this job. We got it. I was really, really low on it. It was a very difficult job. And halfway through, I discovered that I probably bid about a third or half of what I should have bid. But you're locked in, you're working, you're going to work every day. You got guys to pay, you got machines to pay. But what turned around to lead me into what I was telling you about with the rocks was that halfway through the job, I said to the owner, like, we don't have any room on the site because your lot's so small. We don't have any room to stockpile the rocks. So we're going to have to haul it away. So they're like, okay, fine. Just give us a price, haul it away. So I said, okay, I'll do it for $500 a load. And off we went. We were hauling it away. And then I started thinking, well, hey, this is nice rock. So then we put it out on Marketplace and started selling the rock. And then I was getting like $500 or $600 a load for the rock. Plus they were paying me $500 to get rid of the rock. So that actually, and then we hauled out a lot of loads of rock. So that actually brought up where I should have been in the beginning of the price. So it's just like, that was an area that could have took me out. But, you just kind of keep with it. You take the jobs and you do it. And you just always keep trying to figure out, how to navigate the road as you're going, right?
And for me, when I listen to you, that's what I love about you. I would really, what the word that comes to my mind is figure it out. You always figure it out. Whatever happens, you figure it out. And that keeps on bringing you like a lot of success, and it keeps helping you grow and everything. But for people who are listening to us, I would like for you to maybe share a little bit, if you have a routine, whether you're conscious of it or not. What's your routine to pick yourself up in the morning? When you had harder days or something, how do you get out of your funk and just be like, like, let's say when you undercharge, and I imagine it was probably a feeling of like, oh, poop. Oh, goodness. Yeah, no groceries for the next 2 weeks, So how do you go from
Well, that's the contractor saying is that sometimes it's macaroni and cheese and sometimes it's steak, but you go with it. But I don't really have a routine, but what I do is sometimes I'll just go for a drive, like if things are like that, I go to Squamish or go to somewhere, Horseshoe Bay, just somewhere by the water. That's my thing, or they're in nature. And it could be in the middle of the day or it could be, at night or whatever, but I just kind of take myself to a place like that. Sometimes I'll take a notepad and I write things down, and I'll just kind of write, like how to do things step by step and kind of turn it around or get to where we want to be, just to kind of help organize my thoughts.
So I imagine that, you also have a part that you visualize that it's always going to be okay. And you probably don't have this side of like being defeated in your mind.
Yeah, that's true.
I think when you come,
as long as you have options, you have something to work with. Your options might not always be great, but as we go through these times, which are, not great, there's gravy things that come in and it's like, okay, thank you, I'll take that. And there's jobs where you make a lot of money and you go, thank you, I'll take that. And then that helps you through the kind of lean times, or the lean jobs. But the whole thing is just keep motivated and just keep out there pushing and working, and things work out. It's really like connections with people. It's building relationships. Relationships are everything. Like my employees are great. I couldn't ask for better people. And the customers that I have, some of them, we trained a company in Ontario, Northern Ontario in Thunder Bay. We actually do blasting, training on blasting. And now with COVID, we did our first virtual training with them. And it was a little bit sketchy for me because all of a sudden, like you're going from a 2-day training course where we would do a day in the office and teach them all the classroom stuff. Then we would do a day in the field and get them, hands-on experience with what size of cartridge to put in, what size of rock. Don't go too big, just get the right size. And you're taking that into a virtual element where you're training them virtually like we are on Zoom. But the second day was really sketchy because you're giving somebody explosives to go play with and you're not there. Mm-hmm. But it was, we did that, and then they went and did their first few shots, and then we watched them, and it was great. We built like such a good relationship with them, and one of the little joking things was like, they never used to call me back when I'd call them at first when we were trying to sell them. And then I'm like, why don't you call me back? He says, oh, sorry about that. Like, our receptionist says it's Apex calling, and Apex is our security company or something. So we don't bother with them. We thought you were them. So they didn't call me back. But once they found out it was me, now we have a good relationship, and I've never even met these people. So, yeah, you can feel things kind of building. Now they're going to go off. They've done one job. They're going to do another job building an apartment. So they're going to take out all the rock for an apartment. They got other contractors in that area that they're talking to, and they're going to get that area going now. And that's really how it starts to grow, right? Just kind of working with people, not being what's in it for me, but what can I do for them, and let them kind of grab it and come back to you and go back and forth so that you can build them up.
So Dennis, I got to ask, as you're talking, I mean, sometimes these interviews get really intuitive, and I can just kind of hear, I would assume that there's probably more men in your industry than women. I would assume. Maybe I'm wrong in the demolition demolition business, right. But if someone wanted to, wanted to get into your industry and wanted to do what you do, how does someone do that? I mean, it sounds like you created and paved your own way. It sounds like you found the product and then built a business around it, because that's kind of how your brain works. Like, if someone wanted to get into what it is that you do, how does someone do that?
Well, the easiest way is to do it with us. Like, we have now all the products. We can supply products anywhere. We do the training, not only the training, but we also do project planning and estimating. So anybody, they could call us. We'll help them learn how to estimate, learn how to price jobs. We can set them up with products. We can do joint ventures with people in anywhere in the world, actually, that they want to be.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's really the benefit of the virtual aspect of things now, is that you can do so much more. It takes more to set it up, like logistically, to get product where it needs to go, and to teach people. And you need people with some drive and ambition. But there's a lot of work out there. There's a lot of money to be made in this business, because you got to face it. Rock is hard. It's a hard thing to break. It's a hard thing, and most people, when they're excavating or digging, they hate it. It's like, oh man, I hit a rock. Damn it. What am I going to do now? And they don't know what to do, right? But right. For us, yes, you hit a rock.
So what's your, there's silver linings, right, to everything.
Exactly.
It's like, they say, one person's treasure is another person's garbage, right?
Yeah.
So, so Caroline, I got to ask you, so just kind of sidestepping a little bit. I mean, when I think the reason why both you and I just love listening to stories like where Dennis talks about, basically from being in one place and going to another, and the journey kind of being like that, relating it to whether yourself and your business, or some of the things that we've thrown ourselves into lately, like, oh, guess what, we're authors, and it's that navigational. Is there anything that pops to mind when he's talking about that relates to yourself, where, it's a bit of a solo journey? Like, when I hear Dennis talking, it's like, he created this, he built this. It's a bit of a solo journey. Is there anything that pops to mind?
I think that entrepreneur in general is a solo journey, because you need to believe in yourself. And, I'm putting it in a clear word. You need to believe in yourself, but some people will do it their whole life without knowing it. Some people will, really thrive through it, and some people will give up on it. And what I hear with Dennis is that, he didn't even started to expose all of the obstacles he had, but we heard them in the pre-interview, and there was so many. And for me, what really stuck out when I heard, his full story is that every single failure he had turned into an opportunity. And that's not because he's lucky. That's not because, oh, it's him. It's because he made it be this way. So it's really a choice. It's a choice when you hit a wall or when you hit a rock to, decide, what am I doing with it? Do I curl up in the corner and cry? Or do I take, find what's the opportunity in there? And whether you're in rocks or selling encyclopedia, that's a dead market, but any kind of business, it's always like find the opportunity in your failures, find the lesson in your failure, find something that will make you grow and take you out of there instead of focusing on what didn't work. Understand why it didn't work, but don't focus on it. And I actually have a business suggestion, Dennis, for you. You always look at opportunities. I would, open those sessions to recently divorced women. To do.
Well, I could have blasting and divorced women.
Look, I'm like, I see it already. Because you know what? I'm hearing you. I'm totally hearing you. And you know what? I'm taking you seriously, because there's things that people do, right? Like, there's divorce parties, there's anti-Valentine's Day parties, but where they go and get to express themselves. Look, when I first started taking boxing, I just got a call from the gym and they're like, hey, we can take. So when you're boxing and you're hitting that, you're hitting that bag, or you're getting out the exertion, because women, not to get all into that whole thing. I did an interview on that this weekend, but sometimes we're told to shove those feelings down that would be related to explosive. Like, women don't roar, right? That's why we all love Aretha Franklin, right? R-E-S-P, you get it, right? So people, now I'm on a tangent. Now we're going to build you a new business. We're going to be your business partners. We're going to be your business partners. And really, honestly, it feels good. Like, it feels good to go and box, or it feels good to go and, some people do like bows and arrows, or there's things that you can do where you can go and learn to, there's a shooting gallery, and there's things that are not not normally, like if you're upset, go cry, go journal, go write, go pray, go meditate, go talk to your girlfriend, go hit a bottle of wine, go grab a bottle of bourbon, hit the bar, go be served tequila all night from some chick that doesn't know how to make a Harvey Wallbanger, go do all that stuff. But yeah. I think I gotta tell you, she's a smart cookie, this one.
That's a good idea. So Carolyn, is there anything that you get stuck on that takes you out of the game?
The interviewer.
Wow, I was not prepared for that question. Well, yes, there are some things that I get stuck on. And honestly, it's always between here and here. It's when I let myself get into my mind and let myself think I can't do something. And, as much personal development as you do, I think that anyway, for me, that part always comes. So it's a daily practice of like shutting down those voices and not letting them take over. So, as the days goes, I have more and more practice so I can shut them down faster. But I used to stay stuck for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, not doing anything. Now it's a question of like an hour, and I'll be like, okay, go walk in the woods, go do something, listen to something motivating, call someone inspiring. And I'm pointing at you, Dennis.
Or blow something up.
Or blow something up.
No, exactly. But blow something up, honestly, like I would actually pay to have this activity of like, I want to blow something up. I want it to be gigantic. I don't have any rage right now in me, but when those days were there, I would have loved to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
I do get stuck. And I think that generally where people get the most stuck is in their head, because the rest, you proved it. There's always a solution.
And I think what's interesting, I know Dennis a little bit, and I know Caroline a little bit, and I think it's worth, telling our listeners that when something happens like that, and by the way, I love the blowing it up, because sometimes we just need to tell ourselves to shut up,
It's
right?
to stop
Like,
it. Yeah.
honestly,
Right.
sometimes when I get nervous before I speak and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I don't know, and I'm not good enough. Do you know what I do? I put on my headphones if someone's here, like my son who doesn't, appreciate my type of music, and I put on AC/DC.
Oh,
I put
good.
on AC/DC super loud because it shuts up my head, but that's another story. But one of the things that when you talk about when something unfavorable happens, right?
Mm.
Unfavorable, I think we've all experienced enough to know that to every dime is the other side, to every nickel is the other side, silver lining. But to actually have your feelings about it. I've done many things where I'm like, okay, that's it. And I kind of try to go into without feeling the feelings. So I think it's about acknowledging what had happened, examine what had happened. Oh, I'm not going to hang out with that person again, or I'm not going to, I'm going to look at red flags, or I'm going to look at my numbers better when I project, or whatever it is, and then get rid of it as soon as possible and go into the positive, right? So for people that I think where people get stuck is they can kind of get stuck in here because they don't have experience of knowing what it's like to go over here, or they don't have good mentorship. Like Dennis, you have good mentorship. Caroline, you have good mentorship. Caroline, I don't know if anyone reads more books than she does. Like she gets a lot of mentorship through Words and Pages. And Dennis, I know that you've also reached out and utilized mentorship. And I just think that it's important for people to know sometimes you can't get yourself there.
No, that's true. Yeah, exactly. That for me, one of the big things was like we belong to different associations and different contractors and stuff that we train. I mean, even with the Army, we're dealing with hydrologists and engineers and things like that, where you get so much input from them. And it was something I had to really kind of check myself with at the beginning, because like, well, this guy's got all these, letters behind his name and so on and so on, and I don't. But they have just as much interest in what I have to say as what I have to listen to from what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I wanted to say was that you can deal with your fears or what gets in your way or what you verbalize in your head. Like I always had like a little bit of a fear of flying. Like I had it in my head that I'm okay to fly for a couple hours, but that was about it. And then all of a sudden I had to fly to Toronto. Like, oh my God, that's 5 hours. So I did it begrudgingly, but did it. And then I always said, I wanted to go to China, but I knew in my head it was just like a pipe dream. I was never going to China. It was too far, the language barrier, this and that. And then I was talking with somebody, and then I kind of brought it out, like what was in my way was just that, the fear of flying and the language and stuff. And I thought, I would get so much out of going to China.
Oh.
And I can and go.
Oh, we're just
went and was.
You know what, Dennis, we lost you a little bit there from when you said you were telling someone that you couldn't go to China, and then you decided to go to China. So we just missed it. It got a little robotic. Yeah.
Sure. So I decided that I could be afraid of the travel and I could be afraid of the trip and the language and go. And that's what I did. So I booked my trip, and as soon as I booked it, then in my mind, I'm like, I'm going because here's my ticket. And was I afraid of the flight? Yeah, it was a nerve-wracking flight. I had a connection from Beijing to another smaller town, and going from Vancouver to Beijing was fine. It's big plane. The other one, I was the only Caucasian person on the flight, and nobody spoke English. And it was like midnight to 3 a.m. flight. And I'm going somewhere where I have no idea where I'm going. And I'm like, yeah, this is making me nervous. And I'm here. And you deal with it, right? But it's just if you let the fear hold you back, and you always make up these reasons of why you can't or why you shouldn't, you don't really have to do that. I mean, you can try things, and I think for me, a lot of it is the not being afraid to fail at it. Like if you fail, it's nothing personal. It's just something that happens, and you just carry on.
So I know we're coming to the end of our time on our interview, and we could talk for an hour and ever. And I know that we're going to be talking about it again. I know that when you're going to be launching your new division of Girl Blow Up, rock, Girl Blow Up rock.
Careful, praise that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Caroline will come up with a name for you. So kind of finishing off here, what is it that you do, and how can people get a hold of you, and what is it that you would, what's kind of, what are the projects that you want to work on? What do you work on? Like, let us know, because it's big, and I think our listeners want to help you here.
Sure. So we offer a service where we send crews out and we break rock. We charge by the day, and we also bring on companies like rental shops and hardware stores that can sell the products. So anybody that is like a contractor that wants to expand into something more, like an excavating company or a landscaper, or anybody that just has like some interest in this, we can help teach them how to do it all. Work with them in any area. Particularly North America. And they can get a hold of me on our website. They can check it out. It's apexrockpros.com. Or they can call. It's 604-540-2002. And yeah, I'm happy to offer like an hour free consultation to any way that I can help, or even just somebody that has a job that they need to do with rock or concrete. We can offer them some help with designing how to do it. Anybody that wants to build a house and has rock to take out or anything along those lines.
Awesome. Well, it was such a pleasure to hear the other side of our friendship, which is entrepreneurship. Caroline, I'm going to let you kind of take us out here.
Yeah, I was just thinking as as Dennis was doing the closing, I'm like, only Deborah and I can bring a demolition guy and make him talk about personal development.
Yeah.
Hey.
He's going to go have a martini now.
That's right.
Well, we said we are different, and we are, because that's what I love about our show actually is, and for me and I know for Deb is the same thing. It will always be to go get the real person behind the entrepreneur, and big tough demolition guy. Well, Dennis just showed us how he got there. So there's always vulnerability in a person and a story behind every success. And Dennis, thank you so much for sharing with us. I appreciate you a lot. And call him. Who knows, maybe people will start calling you for coaching as well, so you will turn your business into another dimension of personal development coaching. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I think you really have a lot to bring. You have a lot to bring. You have a lot to share. And I love the different dimensions you're offering. You're offering a dimension for clients. You're offering a dimension for entrepreneurs who want to add another part to their business, and also for people who are looking to just start in a business. So it's very multidimensional. And soon you'll be helping women. So,
Yeah.
She's like a dog on a bone, right? Like, I'm telling you, you're going to have to just pretend to create a division for this, because I can tell you, this woman, when she's onto an idea, it's like, woo.
Well, we'll talk, Carolyn.
Well, thank you everyone for being with us, and join us for the next podcast. That's going to be just as interesting, probably. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much, Dennis from Apex Rock Pros. And thank you, Deborah.
Yeah.
Hey, no worries. Hey, everybody, go out there and rock your day. Go blow it up.
Blow it up. That's it.
Go blow it up. All right, guys.
Bye.
It was fun.
Later.
Bye.
Okay.